Dogg, you worked with both Vince and Triple H, and you've seen how they're similar and how they differ. And we talked about talent, but let's get into story. Overall, do you think they book differently, or is the actual match and matchmaking and booking are there subtle differences between the two?
I think the differences between the two are subtle. Look, this is how I feel, and I don't think anybody can get mad at me for saying this, no matter who you are. Hunter was a top guy. Hunter was a top guy and drew money in this industry. Vince was a promoter. Now, Vince has drawn money working with Austin and stuff because the storylines were awesome. However, he didn't do that like a great wrestler does that. He did that like the boss, working with the hottest thing going, and it was lightning in a bottle. My point is, I think Hunter knows how to make a top guy better than Vince does, and I think that's because of his experience being one. I don't think it's because he lacks anything. I just think Hunter had that experience of going up the chain of command and then being the guy for a little while.
Is one of the things that that makes that something that one of the things you notice is regards to that Vince kind of rushes talent through or kind of hot shots a program a little bit, where I feel like Hunter has always been, since in my experience working with him, very methodical and calculating. And generally, I always used to hear Hunter say this phrase a lot, like, now I just forgot the phrase I was going to say.
He used to say this phrase a lot. Shut up, a-hole.
No, dead in the water is what I was going to say. They'll be dead in the water. And I think one talent that comes to mind right away, Rick Boogs, that there was a lot of demand for the Boogs down in NXT. And Hunter used to talk about, if we throw him out there too early, he'll be dead in the water and it'll kill the push. He then got brought onto the main roster.
It could kill the talent too. You know what I mean? Not literally, but metaphorically, kill the push and kill the talent. And look, I was one of the ones that was getting frustrated when he'd say no, he's not ready, and not just with Boogs, with a lot of guys. And I would think, like, well, if they're it's NXT. Like, let's put them out there now. If they're going to fail, let's do it now. But they could be in the frying pan, you know what I mean, and learning rather than just training. Me and him had a different philosophy about that. Is I believe you put a guy on TV and see what you got. You know what I mean? And he believes in don't put him on TV till you know what you got. And I think there's probably a happy medium in there, but that's the way. You don't know what you got till Rocky Maivia turns into The Rock, and that's a metamorphosis that's natural. I don't know what the word I was looking for, organic, but because it just transformed to who he was and how he is. And so you don't know. Sometimes you might have a guy that's a character that you see something on in his ring work that you go, well, that doesn't match your character at all. We should do this with you. And so I don't know. I think there's a happy medium there. But look, I think Vince got bored a lot with stories too. If he didn't think it was catching on at all, he would just cut bait. And I understand that part of the philosophy too is, okay, cut bait. Don't spend another minute
too much
trying to do that because it's not working. And I think Hunter is a little more, and I would tend to be too, a little more patient. We haven't really tried, because sometimes you don't put everything into it. You're just standing back, seeing what you got, and so the machine ain't behind it yet. Man, sometimes you gotta meet in the middle and push that guy a little bit and give him an opportunity to get over. And then if he does it, then you got to cut bait and refigure.
I remember going back into early years of NXT, 2013 through 15, and there was a lot of frustration back then from talent who had been in the system for so many years and weren't getting their chance. And a lot of them would just say, just give me the chance to go out and try, and if it doesn't work, I understand, and you cut your losses, and I'm out of a job in a program. but so many wanted a chance and didn't get that opportunity. It's going to be interesting to see if there is this talent lockup on the developmental side, or if the 2.0 philosophy of at least throwing it out there, putting people out there and seeing what sticks in the audience resonates, because we're seeing success in that as Nikita Lyons fandom is bringing her up into the women's tag team tournament on Raw and SmackDown.
Yeah, and that's awesome. And look, she's one that you and I both know is multi-talented. She's a multifaceted entertainer.
Rapper, singer, dancer, martial artist, weapons expert.
So when she gets her in the ring stuff down, and she's getting there, she will get there. It's, man, you got to have a bunch of matches and you got to screw up 1,000,000 times before you get good at it. When she does, oh man, like I don't know if you remember, but me and you both wanted her to debut with like 2 other girls, and they like do a dance routine out there, and she raps and stuff, and she's very entertaining, man. But look, that's what's interesting to me is what's going to happen, what's going to become of NXT, because I think at NXT they were kind of started writing and focusing very heavily on character development that you and I were a part of before we decided to leave. But so we know about look, there's a great stuff on tonight about it, or whenever it is, NXT with El Jefe and the Don. You know what I mean? Like those are great characters that we came up with. Santos Escobar, and you know what I mean? Like those are great characters, and man,
D'Angelo, like we knew that guy was going to be a mobster from the beginning.
Because that's what he talked. That's how he was, and it was like, okay, well, let's not run from what he does really well. He can work too. That's a plus. But what, and his character got over. You know what I mean? So I think they're doing really well. My point with all this was, now that Vince is gone, and I don't know who's running exactly NXT, or if NXT's pitching their shows to anybody up there, or if they're just writing their show and executing. I want to see if it changes any from colorful, you know what I mean, the new logo and all that, and they're not just going to dump all that. I wouldn't imagine. I imagine they'll take some time and over time, but I'm wondering if it'll change back to Hunter's NXT. You know what I mean?
This week's episode started with a very Saturday Night's Main Event style, where it was the talent giving their one-liner promos in their little setting, and it led to, and each one-liner kind of told the story of the greater picture of the episode. It had some energy and got us started right away by understanding there's 6 to 8 prime characters right now that we care about this episode, and there's some big matches. Let's talk long-term booking. Obviously, with there being such volatility in script creation on a Vince-controlled Raw and SmackDown, does he still generally like to have a laid-out long-term plan, or with injuries and with setbacks and obstacles, is it just too hard in the modern era to book long-term?
So it's not impossible, and we're going to see that over the next several months. But it is tricky. It's difficult, and that's what you mentioned earlier. Dusty used to say booking is hard. It is, man. It's not easy, and because there's so many variables. Like you can write out a beautiful long-term, 4-month story, and the guy gets hurt, and you're back to the drawing board, or the girl gets hurt, and oh man. And so, but yes, to answer your question, 100% he likes long-term stories. Having said that, you get into that long-term story, and after about 4 weeks of, you know what I mean? Like I remember, like if it was 6 weeks to a pay-per-view, I was like, oh Lord, how could you come up with 6 week worth of stuff? You just got to get very creative and listen to all the ideas and pick the best one. You know what I mean? Because it's wrestling; everything's been done, and it's just difficult to come up with months worth of creative that's compelling television every week.
We're seeing some different fresh styles of story presentation right from the get-go of the Hunter regime with this Dexter Lumis debut, as fans by the end of the episode put together the little clues of these subtle things that were going on, of this car crash in the background of different interviews, and then the fans now being able to put together, oh, maybe that's who it was, and thus him getting pulled away and arrested was because of that.
Yeah.
Hunter was very cerebral, obviously known as the cerebral assassin, so it's going to be interesting seeing these subtle storytelling techniques get laid out throughout episodes.
It's already more exciting, right? Like I saw people last night on my timeline who literally thought there was a car crash during a Kevin Owens promo, and they said that car crash was not a part of the storyline. It happened, and I was like, guys, if a car crashed on a TV show, they would cut tape. You know what I mean? They wouldn't continue rolling. They'd go, "Is everybody okay over here?" But I love that. That's an Easter egg, right? And it makes me want to watch next week to find out more about that. Same with Dexter Lumis. And so I think he's been strategically genius the last couple of weeks. Karrion Kross showed up in the biggest story there is and dropped Drew McIntyre. Holy mackerel! They'll probably go to a triple threat at the castle or something. Or if not, Roman beats him, and then you got a story right there with Drew and Karrion Kross. So, look, I think you've seen a lot of really cool stuff happen already, and we're only like a week and a half in.
It's all interesting.